and it's so cool.
Yeah.
It is so cool, and it was wonderful, really. And Renee, you'll be back with us next week.
Yes, I will.
So that will be cool.
Well, and interestingly, along those lines, since we were talking about sort of her housing and some of the protections and the equality,
yes,
I saw this in the news that Tuesday, the Obama administration took another small step towards equality. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development will soon begin pursuing cases of housing discrimination against LGBT tenants, as well as expanding its interpretation of federal housing policy to include protections for gender identity. Now that's at the federal level, of course, and
Yes.
that's just sort of department guidelines. But it's nice to see, throughout the federal government, throughout the country, you see cities, you see townships, you see county governments, you see businesses, you see departments doing this evaluation and realizing it's in everyone's best interest to include gender identity or expression in their anti-discrimination policies. That this is not something people should be treated differently for, and it's not universal yet. We're working on that, but across the world, it's stark contrast when you see something like a South American capital pass equality, and we're still debating it here.
Yeah, it's almost embarrassing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But actually, the HUD policy spreads far and wide, because if you take out a HUD loan, that is also covered under the policy. And so there's a lot of apartments and that have HUD loans, and it will affect them. So
Well, that's good.
yeah. And HUD also has a policy on homeless shelters about recording gender.
They do.
Yeah, now
That they shouldn't.
no, well, when somebody goes to a homeless shelter, they have to give certain data
Right.
that the HUD maintains and gives a report. And some of the data that they're collecting now is on how many trans people are actually in homeless shelters.
Sure.
Wow.
And we've certainly heard from some of the people that have worked with the homeless shelters around the New London area that there was, historically there was a real bias, that there was definitely, people were being turned away.
Right.
And thanks to some of the concerned folks that were involved in those programs in the New London area, trans women don't get sent out of the women's shelters anymore.
Right.
Yes.
The latter half of this news blurb was about a recent study by the National Center for Transgender Equality and the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force found that housing bias is an endemic problem in the queer community. An astounding 19% of transgender respondents reported homelessness due to discrimination because of their gender identity.
Yeah.
Almost a fifth of the people that responded to the survey had experienced homelessness because somebody disapproved of the way they looked.
Yep.
Yeah. It's scary. It is very scary. I know. Certainly we don't know exact numbers, but we've known for some time that trans people tend to be homeless at a much higher rate.
Right. Yeah.
In fact, we have a guest possibly coming on in the near future to talk about that. But
for LGBT homeless.
yes,
Yes, for the entire community. But the other stat we've seen recently is, while I think Connecticut's unemployment rate's just over 9% right now, the trans unemployment rate is up around 30.
Yeah.
So around 30% of the trans community is unemployed and can't find work because, in large part, even for the jobs that are available, they get discounted simply based on their appearance, based on their expression.
Right. The Connecticut Trans Advocacy Coalition actually has a grant to study in the greater Hartford area housing and the needs for the transgender community. We received a grant from Yale to study the community to see what their needs assessments are.
Wow.
And one of them is the housing and employment.
Sure.
So it should be interesting once we get the survey finished to find out exactly how it is affecting us in the Hartford area.
That's a really good thing. It's, that one of our biggest problems in the past, historically, has been that for people within our community and the broader LGBT community, there isn't a lot of data.
No, there isn't.
And partly because we all hide, but hopefully we won't have to do that forever. Certainly we're not hiding, but a lot of us do, and you can sort of understand why. But so the data, the demographics and stuff just isn't there, and hopefully that will go a long way to changing people's minds, because I think when those numbers do come together, everybody will see just how scary they really are.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's one of the problems when we try to get the Department of Social Services or Department of Children and Families or Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services involved in the trans community. The first thing they say was, what's the size of the population?
Right.
What are their needs? And in the past we said, we don't know. Yeah. And so they say, come back when you find out. So hopefully
we'll find out.
Yeah.
At least get a sampling in Hartford.
Right.
Yeah, I know when we set out on this on the tall group, some of the goals that we had identified, some of the areas that we knew needed help were housing, employment, and healthcare. Those were the goals you told me.
Yeah.
We set out for, and those are the areas that, especially for people who are in transition, but trans folks in general and LGBT folks in a broader community. Housing, employment, and healthcare are fundamental to a stable, healthy society.
That's right.
And in larger numbers and disproportionate numbers, we have problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully, this study will lead to another study for the entire state. This is really a pilot study for us.
Yep.
We're doing it with the Hartford Gay and Lesbian Health Collective. The two of us received the grant jointly, so we've been working on it. We just went live for the first time. We interviewed some of the trans people in Hartford. So.
Wow. That's really great.
Yeah.
So this is also now a call for any of the trans people living in the Hartford area.
Well, actually, you can't request to take the survey. The way the survey works is called a snowball, where we have one person, they come in, take the survey, then they have 3 others come in and take the survey, and then those 3 people each have 3 people. So it's called a snowball, and because of that, we have to control the way people are taking the survey.
Sure. But you also have to have people who are going to be willing to take the survey.
That's right.
So I guess
you're right. If you're called upon, be willing.
If you're called upon, please take the time and put the effort forward to go take the survey.
Right.
Is then my amended message.
Yeah, the computer software will crunch all the numbers and spit out all the data, and it has to have a certain type of input.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah, that is very cool.
And we've been working on it for over a year now, so very happy that we actually got to.
You got your first interviews.
Yes, we did the first 6 people. So.
Wow, that's great. That's exactly what we need. We need some numbers so we can say, hey, look.
Right.
Yeah. Very cool.
I was just up at a conference in New Hampshire dealing with the same issue, trying to pass the laws up there. They have as you know, what was it, 2 years ago they tried to pass a law and it got soundly defeated. Even the sponsors didn't vote for the bill. And it was all against and no in favor, and so the trans community up in New Hampshire is really evaluating it and looking at their strategies. So they had a conference this past weekend to come up with ideas of how they can organize and generate more interest in the bill. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so we sort of covered the what's going on in Hartford a bit. What's going on a federal level? What's going on?
How about ENDA?
And DOMA
and Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
What's in the news these days?
Right now, I would say the way things are in Washington, it's don't ask, don't tell, because they're not telling us what's happening in Washington. The Employment Non-Discrimination Bill was promised to us to be voted on around the first of the year, and then it was promised to us in April, and then they said we're going to do it around June, And now they're saying, well, maybe next year we're having it bring it up. Barney Franks hasn't released the bill from committee yet. There still is no markup, which is the bill when they bring it to the floor. So nobody really knows what the wording
Right.
of the bill is. And there's been some pretty scary rumors about what they want to add to the bill.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you know, it's an employment bill, and they want to. Some of the rumors are that there will be limits on the bathroom use. That you couldn't use the gender that you identify in bathroom until you had surgery, and
Wow.
you know will completely gut the bill if they do anything like that. So,
Yeah.
but we don't know because nobody said what's in the bill. Everyone said, well, you know, I've seen it and it says this, and other people said, well, I saw it, it said this.
Yeah.
So until it's out on the floor, I'm not going to say to Representative Larson or our senators, vote for this bill. I want to see what the wording is first.
Right.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to take a step backwards.
Well, and it would be sort of a sad day when our state protections are actually stronger than the federal ones. But that could happen.
Right, and what could happen too is that if they pass the federal bill before they pass our bill, it might influence our bill and make it weaker.
True.
You know, they say, well, look at what they're doing on a federal level. So,
Right.
Now, along with the lines of don't ask, don't tell. There's two little news blurbs that were interesting that I saw today. One was a quick little blurb from on the Tonight Show with Jay Leno. Bill O'Reilly from Fox News was a guest, and Bill O'Reilly thinks President Obama should just sign an executive order repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Bill O'Reilly says it's just not fair. They should stop this nonsense.
Wow. Good for him. Wow.
yes, surprising.
Yeah, a little bit, but
Well, I you know, at the end of the day, I think he's a fairly pragmatic guy, and
Right.
he sees the writing on the wall, and he just wants it to be over and stop talking about it
yeah.
and move forward. New reality.
Because one of the things they're doing is they're having a survey of the military personnel.
Yeah.
And they're actually talking about segregation. We have a gay barracks and a straight barracks, you know,
Oh,
or
God.
gay showers and a straight shower.
Which I think is hilarious because this is so that there's no sexual contact, there's no sexual flirting. We're going to put all the gay people who are attracted to each other in one place
Yes.
because we don't want any kind of sexual tension going on.
That is kind of funny, isn't
Yes.
it?
But that actually leads to this other one, which is a little bit scarier, and this is from one of the anti-gay opponents' national groups. Has begun using HIV scare tactics to coerce soldiers and their families to rally against Don't Ask, Don't Tell. The effort is called Mission Compromised, and this group cites aged studies about what it means to be gay, and they go on to say that gay and bisexual men are more prone to substance abuse, partner violence, depression, and childhood sexual abuse, which we know from modern statistics is not true. But this woman from LGBTPOV.com says she's especially worried about such tactics potentially working in our current atmosphere of anxiety in the military.
Right.
But it is interesting because, you know, when's the last time? I mean, the